spending one entire day of your week loving on your existing database. It's not always about going and finding new people all the time. It's not, right? People think that it's all about how can I grow 10, 15, 20 followers today? And I will tell you, stop it. Like, it's not about that, because what's 10 to 15 more doors knocked if nobody answers from that day? And you spent, yesterday door knocking 10 to 15 doors. And then all of a sudden, maybe you had a great conversation with 2 of the doors from yesterday and you never follow up with them, right? Like, imagine that you have great conversations and then all of a sudden you're like, cool, I got you. Bye. Like, I'm never going to love back on you again.
And we're live. We're back. Michelle Berman is on the beach. I am in the state of misery. No pun intended. And we are going to talk about Instagram again today. I'm excited about this, as always. And the title of this webinar is Why Infographics Are Not Instagram Content and How to Fix It. What the hell does that mean, Michelle?
This is a huge pet peeve. Jeff, you've been around me long enough to know why I dislike them. So I'm excited to talk about it and have people kind of understand sort of the why behind why I say this. And I think hopefully once I explain it and have time going back and forth with you, that it'll make more sense to people. And ultimately, again, the goal is that our content's supposed to add value and our content's supposed to make us appear as the expert, right? And I just sometimes struggle with certain types of infographics and things that we're going to talk about, and kind of that corporate vibe that a lot of times gets pushed out from different in-house type marketing things, or marketing companies. So we'll talk about all of that. And then this just happened in the last about 45 minutes. And I think, Jeff, you're the perfect person for us to be talking about, or for me to be talking about this with. And we spoke with a client who told me that direct mailers had a confirmed or like an exact ROI for her. So she would rather spend money on a direct mailer than social media. And that was like literally just an hour ago, we're having this conversation. And I just think it's really relevant to I think there's a really fun way we can weave this into this conversation, because I think right now with what's going on in the market, both on the loan side and the real estate side, everybody is, well, I shouldn't say everybody. Some people are freaking out a little bit, and we're kind of seeing what happened like right before COVID, right? Or like right at the beginning of COVID, where everybody was pulling away from all of their marketing and spending money only where they knew their money would for sure come back. And I think that this is an opportunity to have a conversation about that as it applies to Instagram or, in social media in general. And then also, tying that into the infographic side of things. It's my goal.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and the conversations are starting to happen much more regularly with everyone whose business is down. That's mortgage, that's real estate, that's everywhere. And it's now all of a sudden we're taking this serious. Okay, now I guess I should take this serious. And I will say this before we get into that is that for those of you that haven't taken it serious, it's not too late, and there's still plenty of time. But here's what I'm going to warn against. Don't take it serious until the next peak in business, and then you vacate what you're doing here, because this is a long game of social media. And so anything that you do, go all in, make this a part of your business plan. And in 2 to 3 years from now, you're going to be attracting business, and you're going to be able to vacate all of the things you used to do. And that's the last thing I'll say about that. But I want to let you get more deep into what really works. And, as most of you know, Michelle is an Instagram savant, expert. She does it very, very well. She coaches it, she teaches it, and she builds businesses off of it. And so, Michelle, let's talk about that and what works.
Yeah. So I'll say it this way, and then I'll get right into the infographic thing. And I think part of this is so prevalent right now, just from the fact that I just had this conversation. But last week, also on my podcast, Coffee and Questions, I interviewed one of the regional directors for Movement Mortgage. Her name is Kelly Rogers, and she was talking about not confusing success with a tailwind. right? So like when business is super hot, all of a sudden you're like, man, look at everything I'm doing. It's working and everything's wonderful. And then all of a sudden, like things go down and you start to realize like the reason why my business might be down is maybe I don't have systems or processes or things in place that should have been there in order to confirm or to create consistent success versus tailwind success, right? So there's a really big difference between those two things. And I think that that's kind of why this infographic conversation is so important to me, and why I'm so adamant about it. So really the conversation around.
Let me stop you real quick.
Yeah.
Let me not assume that everybody knows exactly what an infographic is. So let's make sure they understand what is it that you mean when you say infographic? Is it a static post? Is it just an image? What are we talking about here?
So an infographic is essentially a lot of times you'll see them as like the little grid of like a path, and you'll like the 5 steps to the home buying process. Or it'll be like a pros and cons column of like renting versus buying. And there's a ton of text on it, right? Usually there's a lot of words. Usually it's not a photo of you. Usually it's a stock image of some kind. Maybe it's a template that you're just pulling out of a portal, something along those lines. But the one that comes to my mind every single time when I think about the word infographic is if you guys have ever played Candyland, or if you have kids and you know what I'm talking about, like it's like a little snake and there's like little parts along the way and it's usually that's placed on a template and then somebody will throw it up on Instagram. And typically any post that has more words than a sentence or like a singular sentence, it's too much text, right? It's just not meant to be read that way. So the way I always describe it is if it's something that you would hand somebody at an appointment and a showing, a listing appointment, or if it's something that you would leave on the counter for somebody at an open house, then that's where it should stay, right? It's not meant to then take a picture of it and then post it on Instagram, or pull the virtual or the digital PDF of it and post it as Instagram content, right? Because those types of things are meant to be physically held and read. And the power is being able to go home and consume it later on. Why that's a bad thing, and we'll dig into that. But the fastest answer to why that's a bad thing on Instagram, 2 things. Number one, it's really, really hard to read, right? So there's too much text on it. And Instagram is a scroll stopping application, meaning our job is to post something that's going to grab attention and get somebody to stop their scroll. So if all I see when I'm scrolling is this infographic with a ton of text on it, that is not scroll stopping at all. If I see that same infographic repurposed in the form of a question with a single sentence and maybe everything that's in the infographic itself is kind of described in the caption, that's a totally different thing. And we'll definitely get into that, I'm sure, today. But so 2 things. One, it's too much text. The second thing is, to your average user, right? To somebody who is going to go look you up after being referred to you, an infographic, it to me is a placeholder, right? It is I marked or I checked the box. I posted on social media today, not I did something with intention, with the mind frame of I'm adding value to my end user, right? So it's almost like talking to no one, because I would say 90% of cases, and again, I've been doing this for 8 years, so I've seen a lot of infographics. They're not for an individual or a specific type of avatar, right? They're for anybody who might be wanting to look at a house or anybody who might be wanting to get a loan, right? So they're not specific. And ultimately, again, it becomes this check mark or box checked, versus I'm putting time and effort into this and I'm giving my audience content that they need and I know that they need. So the quick way of answering it, or I guess the way of putting a bow on that, is that to your end consumer, it just looks lazy, point blank.
So what you're saying is it's not necessarily the content of infographics that's necessarily the bad thing. It's how you're presenting it.
1000%.
And so would you recommend taking that content and now, like, I mean, because let's think about this. We're talking to potentially a lot of real estate agents that they don't just have marketing teams. In fact, a lot of brokerages don't even have marketing teams. And so, some of the ways I know that what you're going to say is you take that infographic and you put it into different, images, and then you have a scrolling, what do you call that?
Carousel.
The carousel. And then is that the kind of thing that you would recommend? And if so, though, would you take that and go have somebody on Fiverr make it like that? But you shook your head, so maybe you're going to say no.
Yeah, I would say no. First of all, going to Fiverr to make social media content in that case, to have somebody on Fiverr recreate an infographic, it's a waste of money. Like, just don't. Like, you can go into Canva and you can make it two things again, right? So one, it's a waste of money. Two, you can go into Canva and recreate the exact same thing with more power and oomph, which I think hopefully we'll talk about. But the most important thing about all of that is that it will be branded to you. So if you actually have a brand and you use Canva efficiently, if you open up Canva, you will be able to create your aesthetic the way that it's designed to be, based off of, whatever the colors, logos, whatever you've built for yourself over the years, versus a infographic that everybody has access to, right? And I think this is a lot more prevalent, at least right now on the loan side, right? Meaning, like, most large loan companies have in-house marketing people that will, put a bunch of content in a portal, and then you go in and you download it and you just put your face on it. That's obviously what we don't want to do. But an infographic, the best way to go about this, let's use the renting versus buying example, right? So the best thing you could do in a renting versus buying pros and cons is, instead of one post that has 10 bullet points on it, which you look at that and you're like, okay, cool, I posted it one time, now what? Right? I don't have anything else to post. I can't post it again 9 more times so that hopefully everybody sees it. But what you can do is, if you have 5 bullet points on the why, or the pros to renting versus the 5 bullet points on the pros to buying, you can turn that into an entire series over the course of 5-10 posts, by taking each one of the bullet points on the infographic and making one post about that one thing, right? So if you go into Canva, for example, and you have your templates that you've developed that are branded, and then you put one piece of that infographic as a whole on that template, all of a sudden you now have branded content to you, right? Which actually adds value and credibility to, like, who you actually are as far as a brand. And then secondly, you now have 10 pieces of content, or 5, or however many bullet points there are. So you're not all of a sudden back to square one as soon as that post goes live, right? Because I think, Jeff, you and I both know that one of the number one complaints from people is, I don't know what to post, or I don't have anything else. I don't know what else to say, right? So you eliminate both of those variables if you teach, or if you take what we're teaching, which is create value around something that you're an expert in, and then leverage it across what I call, and it's a term I coined inside my program called value series. It just makes you look way more authoritative. And it's the opposite of the original phrase I use, which is that it makes you look lazy, right? So it's literally the polar opposite of that.
So now I'm thinking to myself, but how much effort, how much work is it to go into Canva and do this? I don't have time for that.
So Canva is painfully easy. Canva is probably the most user-friendly application for social media that I have ever seen in 8 years. And I will tell everybody, it's significantly easier on your desktop than on your phone. So the phone version is a little bit clunky, but the desktop version is stupid easy. I mean, there are thousands and thousands of templates in their gallery, if you will, that are specifically designed to go on Instagram. And it's a matter of changing colors. Like, it's a matter of having your branding colors in there and literally changing the background or changing the line that's on it, and then pasting your own text versus this stock text. I mean, I can easily take a infographic that has 10 bullet points and turn it into 10 individual pieces of content in a matter of about 15 minutes. So that I have all of those pieces of content ready to roll for the long haul, maybe over the course of a month or 2 months, or however long you want to space that content out for.
So, but what is the learning curve on something like that?
I just think it's different. I think it's different for everybody. There are some people who creative coloring, branding, playing around with templates comes very natural to them. And there are some who it's certainly a struggle. I would say Canva University is a tool that you should take advantage of. So if you've never used Canva, you can go in and it's literally, I'm pretty sure it's called Canva University, but you can actually go in and watch about 20, 30 tutorials on how different effects you can use, whatever. You can go to YouTube University, right? Everybody loves a good YouTube video, but it's not hard. And I would say go one step further, right? If creating branding and creating templates is one of those things you're just like, I have tried and I just suck at it. That's where, hiring somebody comes in. That's where maybe you have a Fiverr person build you a template base. Maybe, my company, we do that for people. We do branding sessions all the time. I just made a kick-ass logo the other day for somebody who lives in Colorado Springs, specializes in working with people in the military. She's a military brat herself. And we just had a lot of fun with the concept of it. And, it doesn't take that long. So I think it's one of those, like, that's a good delegating thing. But at the same time, I do believe that there's a lot of value in understanding. This is what I'll say, right? There's a lot of value in understanding the time and effort it takes to be good at something, because that makes you more willing and more likely to then be okay with paying somebody to do it. Because if you've gone and you've tried to do it and you're like, man, this is hard, or man, this is just not easy for me, or I just feel like somebody else could do this better, you now have that pain of, I've tried to do it myself and I'm struggling. So you're more willing and more likely to then be okay with paying somebody to do it for you, knowing that it's just outside your lane.
Yeah. Gotcha. So when it comes to, I know we're beating a horse on the infographics specifically, but so you give that idea on how you do it yourself. Essentially, you can make it a lot sexier. You can make it look a lot better. You can break it up into multiple forms of content, right? What is another way that you would suggest somebody, what is the best way to be attacking Instagram here to the person who's either A, not doing it, or B, being lazy?
So the number one thing that I can tell you is that your content is not for you. Right. So when you're posting content on social media, specifically, Instagram, I would even beg to say TikTok. And Jeff, I'm not a TikTok person. It's just not where I spend my time. I watch TikTok videos, but I don't spend time doing it myself and putting effort in there. But for me, when it comes to Instagram specifically, because that's my lane, and Facebook for that matter, because they're one and the same as far as where content gets pushed out to, but your content's not for you. Right. So if you're producing content and you're like, man, I love this, like, I think this is beautiful, and I also think this is super valuable. Ask yourself the question of, but is it valuable to the person I'm actually trying to earn their business or earn business from? Right. So a great example is I work with real estate agents and loan officers for a living all day, every day. That's my person. That's my client. That's where I spend all of my time. And when I read something that I want to put out, and I have a lot of brain dump ideas, and my employees know this, but I have sticky notes everywhere in my planner, because I'll be talking to someone and I'll have a brain dump and I'll be like, oh, I got to write that down because I want to put that out as a piece of content. And I did this the other day. Cheap leads don't mean good leads. And I posted that as a white template on my account because that's one of my pillars. And I thought to myself before I put it out, I said, cheap leads don't mean good leads. I know that as a business owner, right? I would rather spend $12 on a lead coming in through my funnel, knowing that that person has 5 times more likely to convert because of X, Y, and Z, over spending $2 on a lead, knowing that I'm gonna have to follow up 47 times in order to get this person to actually even answer an email, right? So, but the point I'm trying to make is that when I was putting that piece of content out, I thought to myself, how can I produce this content in a way that makes it so that it's about the ideal client for me and that it's not about me, right? Because while it does and is relevant to me as a business owner as well, I'm not my ideal client, right? My ideal client is who I need to be producing content for. So how can I create messaging? How can I position the idea of cheap leads don't mean better leads to my end user being a real estate agent who wants to be able to use Instagram to generate organic business for themselves? And I think if you take that split second and ask yourself, does this serve my person? And I guess, you know, part of that is you have to know who your person is in the first place. So if you don't know that, then that's another conversation. But does this content serve my person as far as what they are actually struggling with? And I'm going to go back to the renting versus buying infographic, right? Somebody that sees that, like if you're putting that out, if you're putting an infographic out that has 5 bullet points on this side of why you shouldn't be renting, and here's 5 bullet points about why you should be buying, that's for you. That's not for the end user. You're not thinking about the person that's on the other end of that because they don't care about that. That's not the actual pain point for them, right? The actual pain point for them is not that they could use that same 1,200 and have it go towards owning something. The pain point for them most likely is, well, I just got the letter in the mail that said that my rent's going up from 1,200 to 1,500 a month. And now I have to pay a pet fee that I didn't have to pay last year. Right. So their pain point is not what we are putting out in these infographics, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned the renting versus buying. You know, when it comes to just the content in general, you know, we're talking Instagram here, and Instagram, we constantly hear from people that, you know, it's so hard to grow. It's so hard to get engagement. And you're shaking your head. I mean, so tell me why you don't agree with that. I mean, it's not necessarily an agreeant thing. That's happening to people, but what are they potentially doing wrong, or could they be doing better to grow and drive more engagement?
So their content is cheapening their value, right? So in I would say 9 out of 10 conversations that I have with people who schedule a call with me and want to ask like, hey, how do I get more engagement? How do I grow my followers? All that, which anybody who's ever been in my network knows that I am not a followers person. I don't believe in worrying about how many followers you have. I certainly don't believe in worrying about how many likes or video views you're getting, because there's a lot of stuff out there, and especially now of fake video views, fake likes, fake followers, all of that. It's becoming a trend again, which is a huge problem. I feel like we could do an entire webinar, just you and I going back and forth on why not to buy fake followers. But the point being is that your content is cheapening your value, right? Meaning if you're not spending time actually creating content around who you are and what your brand actually is designed to represent, it's a waste of time. You're literally putting time and effort into something that's not going to serve you. And it's making it so that when, let's say I find somebody on an ad, right? Somebody comes through an ad, I get their phone number, email address. I then like, let me say this as if I'm a real estate agent, right? Let me pretend Michelle Berman, I'm a real estate agent going out trying to generate referrals or leads through Facebook ads. I have an Instagram presence and it's kind of okay, but it's a lot of infographics. I spend $1,000 on Facebook ads. I get, I don't know, 50 leads. That seems low, right? Let's say 100, $10 a lead. What's my conversion? Or excuse me, $100 a lead. No, $10 a lead. Yeah. 100 times 10. I'm doing really well with my math today. But let's say that person comes in my funnel. They are now following me on Instagram, and all of my content is infographics, right? I may have had the world's best ad that was super interactive. Maybe it was a video, maybe it was a listing that I have coming live. Maybe it was an event that I'm promoting. That person now goes to my social media or goes to my Instagram and finds me, and it's nothing but a bunch of infographics or a bunch of stock content. Again, cheapening my value is kind of the phrase that I'm going to keep using here, because who's the person I'm actually hiring? Where's the validation of whether or not this person actually knows what they're talking about? Where's the brand? Like, how do I even go down the wormhole of this person, because I don't even know what their brand is? Do they have a logo? I don't even see it, right? I mean, it just keeps that conversation going down the cheapening their value conversation. So I think I answered your question with that, but I think that's the growing organically is all about conversations. In our previous webinar, we talked a lot about the 3 C's, which is, creating connection that allows for conversation to happen, which ultimately creates conversion. And Instagram, social media is a long-term play. It's not a tomorrow thing. It's one of those, how can we do tiny things? The saying goes, tiny hinges swing big doors, right? How can I do small things right every single day? And what conversation are we going to have 365 days from now? And the beautiful thing about Instagram or social media, but really Instagram specifically for this conversation, is one lead that converts over the course of an entire year could pay somebody like, I'm just going to use the price point. Let's say $20,000 is how much it costs you to hire a company for the entire year. Let's just use a round number, right? How many leads do you need to actually convert over the course of a year for you to make your $20,000 back? And ask yourself, is that $20,000 about generating leads, or is it about generating brand awareness that's going to live with me forever?
Oh, it's both, isn't it?
Exactly.
Devin asked a question. What is the number one top method used to increase engagement, in your opinion?
Conversations, right? Are you going out there and are you having conversations? Your content could suck and it could be all infographics for the sake of this conversation. But if you're going out and you're having conversations with other people in your primary demographic, or I guess more so geographic, I'm going to maybe not say demographic. I'm going to say it differently. I'm going to say niche market versus demographic. And in your hyper local area, right? Meaning where you can actually serve and the people you can actually generate business from. So if you're not going out and creating conversations and doing what you need to do to be able to get people to, one, see your content, two, realize that it's actually you that is responding to them. If you have an automated message that somebody gets when they send you a DM, stop it right now, right? Because if I get one of those automated messages, I'm done. Moving on to the next person, because it should be you that is actually responding to your messages. Because I can tell you, as somebody who's been doing this for a very long time, the amount of people who have said to me, wow, Michelle, I didn't realize you were the one that actually responded to your messages, is game changing for your business.
So when you say, when you talk about that though, and like you said, your content could suck. It's not necessarily, I mean, it might, but also sometimes it's just hard to get people to engage. We're just a lazy society becoming lazier. We scroll, we're ghost followers. We're all guilty of it. But you're saying I think a lot of people lose sight of that. They think, okay, I want to increase my connections and the engagement that I get with other human beings. I'm going to go to social media. I'm going to start posting, and I'm just going to wait for them to start commenting on my stuff, because we all know they're all sitting there on the other side waiting for Jeff Fitzer to post. Not right. So what you're saying is like give more direction here on, okay, you should be consistently posting, first of all, because it is a reflection of your brand, and who knows, maybe something will hit and really create a lot of connections. But where should they be going to engage and connect with people?
So there's 3 areas of the platform that they should be doing it in: geotags, accounts, and hashtags. Those 3. And what I mean by going out and doing engagement and creating conversation on your own is meaning you go out and you search in the 3 different categories: hashtags, geotags, and accounts, which the way that we teach it is on a 5-day calendar. So we teach it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You have a different category or what I call third place that you're engaging on. And in each one of those days, that is broken down into those 3 categories. So accounts, geotags, and hashtags. So let's say, for example, one of the places that is, let's pretend we're going to use you, Jeff, as an example. So let's pretend you're a real estate agent trying to go generate leads off of Instagram. One of your third places would most likely be golfing, right? You obviously love to golf. It's a huge part of what you do when you're not working and when you're not at home. It's also something that you involve your family with, right? I've seen Winter go golfing with you many times before. And so it's something that you can create a lot of connection with other people through, right? So if you post a reel of you and Winter going golfing and she's putting and she gets it in the hole, right? People are going to look at that and be like, oh my gosh, how cute. Look, it's Winter. She just made a par or a birdie or whatever. But then your caption is talking about why you love this community of, maybe it's a golf course community, and why you love this community, and who this community might be best for is a family that, or it's best for people who have families, for here's the 10 reasons, or here's the 5 reasons, right? And then you can literally, if you want to leverage that, use winter as a prop almost, right? Go to the restaurants, go to the, I don't know what it's called, the pro shop, right? I'm not a golfer, clearly. But you can go to all of these different places and create this sort of, all-inclusive feeling of like, man, I want to follow Jeff around on this golf course because this is awesome. But when you're doing your engagement on what is your third place for, let's say we assign Monday to golf, you're basically going to break it into 3 categories. So you're going to find 5 hashtags that are relevant to golf in your area, which won't be hard, right? It's the specific city golf, or it's the name of the golf course, or it's the name of the country club. And if you do the research, they're everywhere, right? You just have to know where you're looking. The geotag is even easier, right? If you look up the geotag, which is the place itself that you're golfing at, there's a top tab and there's a recent tab. The recent tab is a bunch of other people who have recently tagged themselves at that golf course. What better place to create connection with other individuals than on the golf course that you just recently played at, or one that you play at a lot, right?
So you're going to search these tags, whether
Yes.
it's a geographic tag or it's, a relevant word that's associated with a place, right? It's a hashtag essentially.
Yep.
And then you're seeking out the posts that use the tag, and then what? And then messaging people, like, what are you doing?
Commenting, leaving engaging, genuine comments, right? So like, let's say, Jeff, you go name, what's one of the golf courses that you play regularly?
I belong to a country club. It's called Fox Run.
Okay. So Fox Run, right? If you go to the geotag Fox and you just type in Fox Run in your area, like, because you're physically sitting in Missouri, right?
Mhm.
It's going to know where you are. But it'll also show you, what is it? Fox Run, you said?
Mhm.
So it'll show you probably the pro shop. It'll show you the restaurants that are there. It'll show you probably the clubhouse. Like, you're going to have all of these different actual places that people have tagged themselves in or at in that country club. And what you're going to do is simply go and see whatever they posted. Obviously make sure it's not from 2020, right? That doesn't make sense to do engagement on, which I had somebody email me asking that this morning. So that's actually just happened. But make sure it's a recent piece of content, and engage genuinely, right? If it's somebody at the 18th hole who posted in the caption that he had a birdie, right? You can be like, man, I've never birdied 18. What's your secret? ? The key here's like, everybody needs to like write this down. The key with getting more engagement, and I see Devin's comment in the chat box as well. The key with getting engagement back and keeping your accounts reached high is when you're doing engagement, one, are you ending it in the form of a question, right? So if you're commenting, Jeff, on that post of somebody who just birdied 18, don't just say, wow, congrats, ! The difference between wow, congrats, and man, I've never birdied 18. What's your secret ? Is the difference between engagement and reciprocal engagement or not. And that's the biggest thing that most people don't do. They're like, okay, so I'm told that I'm supposed to go and do engagement. So I'm just going to go leave a bunch of emojis on people's content. Here's a heart eyeball emoji 10 times. I've done 10 comments. Like, you're not going to get anything out of that. Like, there's just very little value to the other person. There's very little value in that from you, right? But imagine the conversation you can now have, Jeff, if you leave that comment, that person then responds. We also now on Instagram have the opportunity to respond directly to someone's DMs from a comment on a piece of content, right? So we can go from a public forum comment on our content to directly to that person's inbox. So now, Jeff, you send a message to that person instead of directly commenting. You send it directly to their DMs saying, what's your secret? Now you're having a conversation. In most cases, that person's going to respond. And then the natural course of events will happen, right? That conversation is either going to turn or it's not going to turn. And then also there's kind of, the knack of how to turn that into conversion, which is a conversation for another time. But I would say that to your question, Jeff, and Devin's question in the chat box, are you creating engagement in the form of questions in your efforts going out and doing likes and comments? Which I can tell you, I would say 9 out of 10 people, 1, they don't know to do that. 2, they don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, and it doesn't make any sense either, because it is not exactly rocket science. And most of us all prospect, buy leads, cold call, door knock, and yet, it's like it's the equivalent of door knocking and going through a neighborhood and be like, door knocking, waiting for 3 seconds, nobody answers the door, I'm going to move on. Right? It's the same concept when you're trying to engage with people on social and being lazy and just, like you said, just doing using an emoji or something like that, which, don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're intentionally trying to make conversation, then you should be intentional with your words and asking questions and driving engagement. So I want to get to Devin's question real fast, just so we don't pass it up. So she says, I used to hit 100% plus of her follower, or of the follower account for account reach. Now it's about 50% account reach. Why would that be? And it says engagement helps boost account reach, but engagement also helps account reach. So I saw a large drop in engagement once Instagram did away with the chronological posting order. So if you anything about this from
Yeah.
your
It's not a new thing. Since it changed, I was trying to combine two words there, but since it changed from chronological to what it now is, which is essentially your feed will show you content from people who you interact with the most, right? So Jeff, you and I interact a ton on Instagram. So I see your content almost at the top of my feed pretty much daily, right? I would imagine vice versa, that you see my content always, which is the goal. But that's what Instagram does, is it shows you based off of your search history, based off of the things that it's seen you engage with, it's going to then show you more of that. So if you want to have other people see your content more, a couple things have to happen. You have to be engaging first and foremost, or your content has to be engaging first and foremost, right? Which goes back to the scroll stopping conversation we were having briefly. And then the second piece to that is that you have to be pounding pavement in the virtual world, right? Meaning you have to be going out and doing likes and comments, doing story replies, sending DMs to people you are not following, or people who you don't interact with every single day, right? Which is where that document that we teach comes into play. And our clients love it because of the structure. But knowing on Mondays, I'm engaging in this category, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it's all built out with the specific intention of, I am finding the people that are right for my business, and I'm spending time every single day of the week intentionally engaging in those categories. And one of the days, depending on how big your tracker is, and depending if we have to do it 2 weeks or 1 week, depending on the person, is engaging with your IG followers, meaning people who are already following you and people that you are following, spending one entire day of your week loving on your existing database. It's not always about going and finding new people all the time. It's not, right? People think that it's all about how can I grow 10, 15, 20 followers today? And I will tell you, stop it. Like, it's not about that, because what's 10 to 15 more doors knocked if nobody answers from that day? And you spent, yesterday door knocking 10 to 15 doors. And then all of a sudden, maybe you had a great conversation with 2 of the doors from yesterday and you never follow up with them, right? Like, imagine that you have great conversations and then all of a sudden you're like, cool, I got you, bye. Like, I'm never going to love back on you again. So that's a big problem, right? And this goes back to the conversation of success is not a tailwind, or don't confuse success with the tailwind. Because if you have systems and processes in place and you love on your existing people just as much as the people that are influxing, or this massive influx of new people, guys, we're talking like literally millions of dollars of money that is being left on the table if you're not engaging properly. And the price point, it varies, right? Every person that's listening to this has a different price point. But the point of social media, the point of all of this is scalability, being able to touch more people with less effort and doing it with more intention. So don't forget about the people that are already in your sphere, right? Don't forget about the people who are already in your database. And when I say database, when it comes to Instagram, I mean people who are already following you, people who are already, or that you are already following. they deserve a place in your engagement calendar just as much as going out and seeking new people. And that is the answer to Devin's question of how do we not have those numbers tank, point blank.
So if you were advising Devin, let's just say, and so first of all, he just said that obviously he's dropped 50% there.
Yeah.
He asked about obviously engagement. Devin, I've been looking at your Instagram. What would be one big piece of advice? I mean, it's very personal. Sorry to pick on you, Devin, but you're talking to us. So we're going to give you a little session here. The first thing I was going to think was, okay, it's probably all real estate, but it's not. And so it seems to be very personal. But if you get somebody that, just generally speaking, so Devin's got 2,100 followers, so it's not shabby at all. There's a lot of opportunity there. He looks young, a lot younger than I am probably. It's not overly, he's not inundating his feed with real estate. So what would be a piece of advice that you would give somebody that you don't know nothing about?
Yeah.
In terms of creating.
Everything I've said is what I would say. I would say it again, especially without knowing his business directly. I would tell you, pick some categories of where your ideal client hangs out on social. And are you doing 45 comments and 20 story replies every single day, which is what we teach?
Probably not.
I would say 9 out of 10 people.
Say that again. How many?
45 comments and 20 story replies. That's what we teach inside our program, or inside my program. And there's so much more than just doing 45 comments and 20 story replies. That's just like the math of it. But he says, I am now starting to incorporate business. I made a mistake of doing a business only account with Devin, thank you for bringing that up. So he made the Voldemort mistake of social media, right? Which is you don't need 2 separate accounts. And Christy's asking, what are the numbers again? 45 comments and 20 story replies. But again, there's a lot of context into how we go about doing those. They're not just 45 willy-nilly, just go out and randomly decide who you're doing engagement with, right? There's got to be an intention. There's got to be a strategy, because if not, you're going to spend 45 minutes a day doing engagement and get nothing out of it.
Right.
So
I mean, the point is too, though, Chrissy, too, is you're being intentional, and you're following the geo tags. You're following specific words and geographical areas and targets, and then you're prospecting. That's the mindset shift, in my opinion, especially with real estate agents, is they look at social media as social media, and you don't look at it as you treat it like business media with your posting, but you don't treat it like business media with your actions. And it's actually social media, right? And so your posting should really be more authentic content. And then your activity should be more business related in terms of how you're trying to connect with people, and not in a slimy way either. Cause I haven't heard Michelle say that once.
Nope.
Like, go slide into their DM and remind them that you're a realtor. And if they ever have a referral, like, no, don't do that.
Never
right.
do that.
Right. It's all about making meaningful connections. And so I think what you're saying is you're building a cadence into your day. And I know it goes deeper, and you'd want to obviously join the Michelle Berman community to learn more, but like you said, 45 and 20, I don't think, like you're saying, it has to be those numbers and it will turn into X. Like, let's just build that cadence in.
It's a framework. Yeah. And it's like anything. Like, Jeff, you and I work out all the time, right? Imagine if we only worked out one day and we're like, man, that was so hard, I'm never doing that again, right? Of course it's hard. Of course day one is hard. Losing my 50 pounds that I gained while having my son, that was hard, right? But imagine if every single day I kept doing it and it keeps getting easier, right? It's the same concept with anything. Everybody's heard this. It's not rocket science, but I will say, one of the things I love about you, Jeff, and I think that we have this mutual respect of one another, is it's like, we are doing this every single day. Like, I do my own engagement and I do DMs, I do story replies, I leave genuine comments, asking questions, being intentional with, I'm not expecting anything out of it. I'm not expecting business. I'm doing it with the intention of being valuable and being giving or caring to the ideal person that I know is the right clientele for me, and letting that conversation happen organically. right? Because if I just did nothing but go on Instagram and send 45 DMs every single day saying, hey, I run the #1 Instagram course for real estate agents in the country, you should join it, people would be so turned off by that. Now, is that fact? Yes, right? But is that how I send somebody a message? God, no.
Yeah.
Right? It's solely based off of, hey guys, I looked at your account and I freaking love your reels and I love your logo, but why is your logo only in your reels? Why is it not on all your other content? Because it's freaking great. You should build branding around that. I'm not asking for business. I'm simply adding value. And a lot of times that's what happens, right? Is it turns into business because it's coming from a place of servitude. And that's how all of you guys, Chrissy, Devin, anybody else watching this, that's how you need to go about doing engagement. Because if you do it with the intention of, I'm genuinely just focused on creating real relationships with people, game changer.
So Duke asks the question in the Q&A, which is, so he does have 2 accounts. And Duke, I was just looking at you as well. And so what should I do? And my initial reaction thought was, okay, so he's got one that's personal and one that's business, but that's actually not the case. They actually look almost identical in terms of what you've been posting in here, Duke. So, I mean, first things first, Michelle, tell everyone listening, how many accounts should they have? They have a business, they have a personal, they should have 1 account. Correct. You should have 1 account posting all things, right?
All things.
So now that I'm looking at this, if you're Duke, which I know you're not looking at this, would you say vacate the page that's probably got less activity and just let it go, let it just fade into the sunset?
I would say focus on the account where more of your current sphere is
where you're getting engagement. It's not necessarily about the followers, where you're getting the engagement. Correct. Right?
If your engagement on your account with 300 followers, because they're all people that are like legit in your sphere, is higher versus the 2,000 follower where like you've spent $200 on a bunch of ads, or you bought some followers. Like, I mean, I feel like I don't even need to answer that, but you know which one you should be going with.
Yeah, no, and it's not the case. You can tell with either one. Duke, I would go with the fried mind one, it looks like. But even the content strategy, I mean, actually, Duke, you're a great example of somebody who posts infographics. And so, I hope that you caught the beginning of this. It's and you're just not going to get a lot of engagement, as you're probably feeling, and I can see it because of the way you're presenting it. And so, I mean, this would be a great account for you to check out. And because you're putting in the work, Duke, you're putting in the work, and now it's just a matter of refining the work to figure out, how do I get better? How do you optimize it? How do you get better results? And I appreciate you for being here, Duke. That's pretty awesome. So Michelle, I mean, I know we're running up against the clock here. We've got about 10 minutes left. I don't want to, obviously we've turned this into just chatting with individuals, which is great, actually.
Great.
But what else would you talk about? So we talked about, obviously the cadence and the connection piece, which is important. I think a lot of people leave that out. They just get onto social and they think it's post, receive, but it doesn't work that way. You've got to actually put the effort into it. Let's go. I think that was understandable, how to geographically target, again, change your mindset, think about the areas that you want to target, the people you want to target, and find those tags, go find those posts, find those people and start commenting and engaging. People are going to notice that. They're going to go check you out. They're going to probably end up following you. And then before you know it, you start to create some relationships. But when it comes to, let's go back to the posting piece here. And so if I'm Duke and I've got a lot of infographics here, and obviously you did a good job, Duke, of putting yourself on camera, using reels. Great job. Keep doing that. Do more of it. Yep. But would you advise somebody like this to completely change his strategy? Like, what's the advice that you would give in terms of going forward? Because
I would say you need to level up your content. You need to focus on branding. There's a reason why branding is an important piece to this. And branding doesn't necessarily mean colors. I'll say that. Branding doesn't have to be your color palette, but what branding does, and I'll say it this way, what having a brand behind your name, right? So anybody who knows the Instagram Power Method knows that that is Michelle Berman Michael. That is my course. That is my program. That is my baby. And anybody that sees my face, whether it's not right now, which is the beach face, but normally my hair is done. So if you see the Michelle Berman Michael photo, hopefully you then associate that to the Instagram Power Method, right? So they become mutually, they're not mutually exclusive. They work in conjunction with one another. So, for example, right, if you see the Nike logo, what do you think about? You think about blood, sweat, tears, hard work, athletes. Like you go down the wormhole of what this black check mark means. That's a brand, right? What is the logo? What is the person? What do they make you feel? And that's really, really important. So I would tell Duke, I would tell Chrissy, I would tell Devin, I would tell any of you guys that are still watching with us or part of this, build a brand and make it part of everything that you do, right? I have a cup that I carry, and Jeff, you have one, right? That has my name on it and has the Instagram Power Method logo on it. And I carry it with me everywhere. I don't walk around saying, here's my Instagram Power Method cup. I just carry it with me, right? I have a t-shirt that has my name on it, and on the front of it, it has Girl Boss. It's a conversation starter, right? I go to Starbucks and get coffee and people are like, hey, what's the Instagram Power Method? What does that logo mean? Right? Because it's the Instagram button with like a power button, and people are like, that's cool, right? Here's a great example of brand awareness, right? I was just on the beach right before I came in to do this webinar with you guys. And for any of the parents out there, you guys know what the California Beach Co. like pop-up tent thing is. It literally like pops up and there's like a thing that goes on the bottom of it. And it's so easy to put together and break down. It takes seconds, right? And you can't see the little logo on the pop-up tent because it's so small. But I had a gentleman who, as I was walking out with my water bottle and my baby to go to this tent, he goes, hey, you have one of those California beach tent things, right? And he recognized the product from what the product did, right? So he recognized that that was one of those California Beach Co. things without ever seeing the logo, right? And vice versa. So if he saw the logo, he would subliminally be like, oh, that's that pop-up tent thing, right? That's a brand. Brand recognition is, can I see it? Can I peg it? Even if it's not, even if there isn't a logo, and even if I can't see the person's face or vice versa. So for everybody, the first thing you need to do is, what is your brand? And maybe it's colors, maybe that is what you need to focus on, but it's not the only thing. The second thing I would tell all of you guys, specifically, I don't remember who we were talking about, if we were talking about Devin or Duke, but is you going out and doing engagement has to be something that you now forever have time blocked in your day. It is prospecting. No longer is the excuse, I don't have time to do comments, or I don't have time to do engagement. Because if you don't have time to do those two, or do that one thing that takes about 45 minutes a day, you can kiss a lot of future business goodbye, because somebody else will capture it if you're not doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll let me add one more thing to it for all of you. And obviously Duke and Devin, I've looked at your accounts, lean into and figure out what your pillars of content are, because I can't define it just by glancing at it. Other than,
and I would have to deep dive on it.
Yeah. And
it's 4 pillars.
Right. And so, well, and I want to obviously make sure they can get connected to you as well, but yeah, define your pillars. And so we know that you're real estate agent. So that's one pillar. You're going to have, then you're going to have like multiple personal pillars. And Michelle mentioned it earlier. One of mine is golf. Like, what are the things that you're doing on a consistent basis? I'm going to try to get to the country club once a week. So I'm going to make sure I turn on my camera while I'm at the golf course and create some content, because now I'm going to be able to connect with more people that golf, because they're going to be entertained, or they're going to like following me as a result of that. So what is it that you're into, and define those pillars of content so then that you can create, so it's easy for you. You're not recreating the wheel here, right? It's, what do you put on your shoes every day and go do, and start making those pillars of content and put that in as a big part of your content strategy, to then start making those connections. Because here's the thing, when you do what Michelle says, and you go start reaching out and following with people, and they come back to your account and they just see, okay, there's just a bunch of listings or there's just a bunch of advice on real estate. They can get that anywhere. That is so diluted. You know, every agent's got that stuff all over their page, but what's going to define you is who you are as a human and what you do with your free time and what your hobbies are. And that's what's going to create more connections and more conversations beyond what Michelle is advising you to do. Michelle, if somebody, I mean, obviously you did a great job of teasing and your knowledge and educating today, but if somebody wants more, like how do they get into your network? Is there a way to join and learn more, go to a webinar, something like that? What can they do?
Yeah. So the number one thing I would recommend you guys do is send me a DM on Instagram. Berman Media Social is my Instagram handle. Jeff, I don't know if you can drop that in the chat box for me. That would be awesome. But Berman Media Social, Berman Media Social. You should know that. You're fired.
I do, but I just wanted to make sure I typed it right.
For everybody watching, like Jeff's spoken at multiple of my events. He should definitely know what my Instagram account is. I'm just giving him a hard time though, because I can't.
I deserve it. I deserve it.
But Berman Media Social is definitely the best place to go to just get down the wormhole of a lot of the stuff that we have going on. DM me and ask for my calendar invite if you want to schedule a call with me. That's probably the fastest way to get on the phone with me. Definitely don't just send me a text message because that's hard for me as far as scheduling calls. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't happen. But I think that's what I would tell everybody. We do have a couple of big events coming up. So we have a big event in July. We have a big event in October. So I think we just have a lot going on of good that people, if they're interested, would enjoy probably.
Awesome. Keep learning. Keep that's the one piece of advice that I'd give anybody is keep consuming. This isn't easy, but it's a hell of an opportunity. Social media is as Michelle, I think you know that I speak about, especially lately, is that the future of technology and real estate, all of it is designed to replace you. The one place that all of this technology that's coming down the pipe cannot replace you is your authenticity, is you as a human being. Robots will never be you. They will never be able to show emotion. They will never be able to share their life. But they will be able to crush you when it comes to automation and connection and being speed to lead, right? So lean into social media. I applaud everybody who's here, and I will implore you, keep on this journey of learning and soaking this stuff up and connect with people like Michelle, because it's what you need. It's what you're going to need in the coming years. It's all you're going to have. So,
well, and if you want to hear Jeff and I speak together, right? May 5th is coming up real quick. Right. Next week. We are speaking together at, I think it's next Thursday at an event called Social Leverage. Renee Rodriguez is the headliner of the event. But Jeff and I are both speaking on our respective specialties. It's a great panel. It's a lot of people who we have a ton of respect for. It's a lot of people who we are side by side in the industry trying to do good. So I think that's just another place to get more information and to just spend more time learning, as Jeff is saying. Jeff, you and I have been doing this for a long time, and I still feel like every day I'm like, man, I just learned something today. And that's what makes us great. So
yeah, the event she's referencing is called Social Leverage in 2022. If you want to go look it up, Mitch Peak is the host and Renee Rodriguez is the keynote, and we'll be there to hopefully drop some knowledge.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Good stuff, Michelle. We'll get back to the beach. Thank you guys for being on today. Thank you to Devin, Duke, Chrissy. Thank you for engaging. Hopefully this was helpful. And Michelle, we'll be back again sometime in May, right?
Yeah, I love it. Good. Thank you guys.
See you guys.
Bye.